Oh, welcome back to the Radio Games Club. We played some games. We're gonna talk about them. Is that some good
Wait, what?
boys?
There were games
Yeah.
we were supposed to play? I thought we were just talking. I thought we were talking about something else.
Oh well, you can
Oh
just stay
no.
quiet the whole time, and
I was
we'll
ready to talk about
over
comic books.
you. That's a different
Awesome.
show that we haven't made yet, Alex. All right, so it's Games
Or
Club.
leave
As
visual
always, I'm your host
children.
Ryan, and I'm joined by my lovely cohort of co-hosts Wyatt
Hello.
and Double Alex.
Taste
Hello.
the sun!
Man,
That's what I was holding my arms up for that long.
I was about to say you got to give it the full reveal.
yeah. All right.
There we go.
Well, let's talk about Nazis.
Welcome to
That's our
topic.
first game.
Jesus Christ.
I swear there's a point to this. Specifically, shooting Nazis in the head.
Oh, much better topic.
Who isn't down for shooting Nazis in the head?
So, Alex, tell us about the game that you picked.
I have a dumb joke first. You know who is down for shooting Nazis in the head?
Oh my
Hitler.
God.
Okay.
All right.
So the game I picked. I'm sorry. The game I picked was Sniper Elite.
Did you pick
5.
this game just so you could make that joke? Be
No,
honest.
I
with
didn't.
us.
I didn't think of it until.
Okay.
No. But I love this game, and I've shot Hitler in this game.
Every one of them, because there's a Kill Hitler DLC in every single one of the.
Yeah, it's like the
games, I
pre-order
believe.
bonus for every single game. I think.
That's pretty funny.
It's great.
Yeah, it's a pretty good mission most times too. So yeah, I picked this game. I had played this game before, and I've played most of the Sniper Elite games at this point. I think I can't remember which one's which because they're all kind of the same. I mean, they all get a little bit better as they go along. This is like really my kind of game. Sneak around and shoot people, and do it from a distance.
I think a good way to put this is like popcorn Metal Gear,
Oh yeah.
if that makes sense.
Ah.
It's like they give you way too many bullets, and it's really fun to just go about and do the
Yeah,
sniping stuff.
you can really, get into it and like turn off all aids and crank the difficulty up so you have to really sneak around and scavenge all your items and
I don't want to have to worry
never
about
get
wind
spotted.
resistance. I want to pop some testicles.
Exactly.
The good thing
like
is if
it
you
on,
do
like, a
want to
sort of
play with the things like wind resistance and bullet drop and whatnot, you can, and then just have a thing that like when you're in your steady zoom mode, it will show you roughly where it's gonna hit. As long as you've got like a focus meter, which I feel like is a very fun way to kind of abstract it and still get the
I like
sniping
it.
feeling.
I agree. I like it on sort of a medium difficulty. You can still get the like time slow and the zoom in breath shot and everything that makes it a little bit easier, but still have
The
gravity and
closest-
everything.
The closest I feel like this game felt to me, gameplay wise at least, was like if in the most recent Hitman games, if you got Agent 47 was able to walk faster.
Yep.
But I think like also the gunplay is really fun with the sniper specifically. I'm a big fan of like big open level stealth stuff where I can just sneak around and hide people in tall grass and things like this is hitting a lot of the right spots for me gameplay wise.
I
Yeah.
really like so I guess to give just gameplay basics, it's like a third person action shooter. A lot of emphasis on big open areas and having a sniper
More so
rifle.
than the prior Sniper Elite games.
Yeah, I think every game gets a little bit bigger and better, and probably just as technology improves, they can do a lot more with that. There's a lot of like there's a million ways to tackle problems. You can get up close and just knife somebody if you really want to, or you can be 10 miles away and blow up a thing that makes it all look like an accident, or you can just go in with a machine gun and kill everybody. Anyway, it's a ton of fun. All the levels are pretty open in like terms of what order you do things to. sort of explore a big area and complete a couple of main objectives and a few more side objectives. They can be pretty expansive each mission though, and take a few hours each.
There's also a lot of like
think-
optional objectives too. That like Wyatt and I played
Yeah.
this in a co-op, which was really fun. I highly recommend.
Yes.
The co-op modes in this game. They were a great time. And we found like a bunch of optional objectives that we just went out and did because we were having fun playing, and that's always like a good sign. Especially because this was like a truly, we only played I think 2 hours of this game and had a blast the whole time, which is rare for this show, that we actually have just a good time the entire time we're playing.
I love the co-op in this game. I mean, like, it's pretty much seamless. You just go in and play the exact same missions you would solo with a friend. And
Was
And I
co-op for
think-
you guys? You play 2 snipers, or is one a sniper and one
Two
a spotter type thing?
Yeah, you both have the full kit.
just imagine single player, but there's another one of you.
But the thing is that they allow you to kind of customize your loadout before a mission. So if you want to have different roles during a mission, you can absolutely do
Totally
that if
could.
you want to. They just don't force you to do it. I think
Oh,
it's one of the things. I think the strongest thing about this game is the level design, in the sense that they give you the experience of those like a open world sandboxy kind of systemic mission, but they rein it in. It's not a full open world, so they can really kind of have more handcrafted levels, and they can kind of set up these fun moments. But it's like that perfect middle ground between linear and like kind of open world systemic sandbox. It's really, really well tuned, I think.
There's a lot of freedom of choice in how you approach missions, and even as you play missions, you can kind of unlock some new ways to tackle them if you come back and replay them.
Mhm.
I can barely comprehend how fun it would be to tandem takedown, like tandem stealth takedown, like two guards with you and a actual buddy going up and knifing them at the same time.
Yeah, we did that a
it's
couple
fun.
of times. It was very fun.
Oh,
it's also
yeah.
you can
If you
can
want to play
utilize
it in
sound in
co-op
these
sometime,
games.
we can do it.
I would love to, Alex. Oh my god.
They let you utilize sound here a lot more effectively than most other games with sniper rifles, because usually the play is always go silence it immediately, but they really play with the idea that like you can shoot, they know where you were, and you can then move and like find another position while they're moving to your old spot.
The stealth is really good in this game,
Which
and
is super fun.
They don't give access to like actually silence your rifles very often or very early.
I was gonna say there's
And-
pistol silencers in the first level.
Yes.
Yeah,
But
pistol
yeah,
silencer
Pistol
rifles
rifles
silencer
are-
a lot easier than you can get like rifle silencers though.
Which I think is just better for the sandbox, because as soon as you can silence your sniper rifle, it becomes much easier, because you don't have to go through the extra steps to kind of muffle your shots or kind of hide. But I also think it's just more realistic, because like, we're silenced anything. Was that even a thing in World War II to begin with?
Maybe like the beginnings of that, but not common, and definitely not for a high caliber rifle like
It
you're
wasn't
using.
standard issue, I'll put it that way.
Right,
Yeah.
tank silencers exist. Silencers don't make something, silent. They make it a little quieter.
But it's also
Right,
just like
but-
the feel of this game is so good that it doesn't really matter like what they're actually. I don't think this game's going for historical accuracy. I don't think anyone
No,
can
no,
really
no.
claim that.
You
Speaking
can
of-
kill
speaking
Hitler
of
in
which-
every DLC.
But it feels fun to play.
Speaking of which, I love these games. I've played, like I said, quite a few of them now. But there's a spin-off series too where you kill a bunch of zombies. I'm not as big a fan of those, but they're still pretty fun. I basically ignore any of the story, and the voice acting in particular is pretty bad, and it never.
Wyatt
gets-
and I were having a great time.
I have a
love
great
the
time.
voice acting.
I have a great
so
time
bad.
with it. But it's
It's-
like, and the thing is, like, these games keep getting bigger, and the budgets keep getting bigger, and you know what? They just hire the same voice actors.
It is the most like
It's proper camp.
it's the most like gruff military man voice, to the point of like, is this an actual parody or not? Like, it's
Yeah, the
genuinely
protagonist-
hard to tell.
Did the protagonist to you guys sound like if Duke Nukem was trying to be serious?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
like,
Absolutely.
you know those like memes and whatnot that people have made of like male shooter video game, like just video game characters from like the year 2004 to like 2016.
when everyone was trying to copy Call of Duty, and so they all had the exact
That's
same
this guy.
like
This
protagonist
is
guy.
all of
Yeah.
those
It's
guys.
him. It's John Warfare.
But it feels like lovingly done, if that makes sense. Like they knew exactly what kind of character they were writing, and they're like, "Oh, let's just have some fun with it. You know,
It's the plot is pretty much always just an excuse to like string together the mission objectives. Because
Yeah.
once you're in the game, it's just go blow up this thing. Go
and
shoot
you know
these
what?
guys.
That's fine. That is perfectly fine.
It's great. I honestly don't want them to have more story.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can squeeze in a good story, that's fine. But genuinely, like it's not a requirement for something like this.
Yeah. I think this one too. I played a lot of the other Sniper Elite games. Typically, I've never finished a single one of them, but I've played a lot of them.
Don't really need to.
And I think this one, the shooting that isn't sniping also feels dramatically better than the others. Those weapons usually don't feel great to use. I didn't play much of 4, so 4 might have also been good, but 3, 2, and 1.
If I remember right, 4 feels pretty
great.
similar to this. I think that this one feels a bit better.
Yeah, and overall, like, the sniping itself is the reason you're playing the game, and when you get those kill cams, it is so good.
Oh, yeah.
Great thing in multiplayer, you
I-
still get them.
I
Yeah,
personally,
somehow.
Yeah.
yeah, they just sort of like time it right so you still see them.
I will say-
personally too, in mine, go in the settings and crank up the frequency of those kill cams.
I think the default setting that I had it at least felt really good because I think I would get sick of it after a while. Not to say that it isn't fun, but I think part of the reason they're good is that they're used sparingly. Again, at least with like the default setting
Mhm.
that I had.
It's like
'Cause then you
extremely
basically you're,
long
like-
distance shots get the
Yeah,
full
it's-
slow-mo, and then
yeah.
other ones will get like either nothing or they'll get like a really quick one.
I would
And I
say
think
it's
that's a
kind
good way to
of
do it.
your equivalent of like a critical hit or something in another game. Obviously, that's not a thing in this game. It depends on your actual shot, but it's the equivalent when you shoot somebody in a dramatic way, like through the eye or through the nuts.
Yeah, I thought there was just like bone breaking, like destructible body physics in there. I didn't know that eyes would explode.
Yeah, that's new.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's a 4 or 5 thing. I don't think that was in 3.
So, speaking of a feature that's unique to Sniper Elite 5, at least as far as I know, which is fun but can become tedious, this game has, I guess, for lack of a better comparison, like Dark Souls-like invasions.
Huh?
Oh
where,
yeah.
If
Huh?
you're connected to the internet, and you have to, like, I don't know if it's even on by default. I think you may have to turn it on. But another player can just invade your game as an Axis sniper.
You can get death looped.
Yeah, and it's pretty
Yep.
fun both to invade and to defend against invader, because there's an enemy with your exact same skill set out there, so you kind of have to watch out in ways you normally wouldn't.
And what's great is that if you're anything like me and you find that kind of stuff incredibly obnoxious, you could just turn it off.
I do recommend turning it off. In fact, I
Good.
like it, but it happens very frequently.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh.
It can happen pretty frequently. I've had it where it doesn't happen at all, and other times it happens constantly.
Yeah. I will say too, we did mention multiplayer. There is multiplayer. It's like 2 teams
Like
just
competitive
duking it
multiplayer.
out.
Oh.
All I can really say
Ooh.
about the multiplayer is that it exists. That's
It can-
the most I
I've-
have to say about
I've played it somewhat. It can be kind of fun. I like the mode where you're like intentionally separated across a gap, so you're just like counter sniping each other. But it gets really, there's, God, people are like way too good at it, and so
Well, it's like
it can
that's
be-
why I say it exists. It's
This
like
game's been
is it
out
the
for a
worst-
while, and we're new to it, so.
Like,
Yeah,
is
exactly.
it the worst thing ever? No. It's there, and
Oh, here's
I
Ryan
guess
trying to see if you can drive a car.
Yeah, I was really curious. I'm okay with not being able to drive cars, though.
Sniper Elite 6. There you go.
I think there is a concession that has to be made where like it is a sniping game, so I think there are some options that you don't have that are for the best because it is a sniping game at the end of the day.
I will say there's a lot of fun other things you can mess with. Like there were options to sabotage both corpses and vehicles.
Mhm.
So you could like put
Oh.
grenades inside either one, and like when someone would come to check the body, they would blow up. You had a lot of like this was a big thing in the zombie games, but you have tons of like types of mines and other things like that you can. If you don't want to snipe, you can go sneak in and just lay mines around an entire area, and then once they start moving through it, they'll start blowing up. And yeah,
For
it's
some
really
of the
cool.
for some of the objectives that are more like sort of assassination, like kill Hitler or kill a Nazi general or something who's in his palatial house over here or something. That's I think in multiple of these levels. Um, there's some like pretty much Hitman level ways to like kill somebody sneakily, either like poison or put a bomb in the toilet or something, and then um,
Toilet bomb?
yeah, because they'll have
Great.
some
Why
like
not?
routines basically, and you can
Mm.
essentially figure out their routine. And
Yeah, Wyatt and I were too aggressive to ever see that.
I have maybe once pulled one off. Usually I just go, oh god, there he is, and then shoot him, and then make a very hasty exit as every Nazi in the country is shooting at me.
So there is like intel gathering to be done for things. There's
Yeah, you
enemy
can
Yeah, 'cause
find
chatter
like
there's
side
that'll cue you into
objectives.
things.
Yeah, there's side objectives, which is kind of neat. And there's a mission that I played when I played solo where you're supposed to enter this like castle basically.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're trying to find your way into the castle, there's a small village that is completely missable if you're just heading towards the objective.
Ooh.
That once you clear it out, it gives you a really good angle on one entrance to the castle, so you can snipe a bunch of people and then enter the castle that way. And it's completely off the beaten path, and there are tons of other ways to get into uh
Yeah,
to your
exploring
objective, which is
around
great.
too, you can find like maybe you can unlock a Nazi armory, and then if you do so, first off you can just refill on all your ammo and explosives and everything, and then usually there'll be like a very good sniper rifle that has like a limited amount of ammunition that you can pick up.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think
Usually
a
it'll be
few
like
times. I think I actually
silenced
have one
and
equipped
very
right
long
now
range or something.
in
Yeah,
the
you look
background
like you
footage.
just picked up that kind of thing.
Yeah, there's
You
tons
can
of cool
also get
stuff. I feel like
giant machine guns, which
I've
is
had an
always fun.
anti-tank rifle at one point, and that was very fun. It's basically like a one-shot at any point in the body. Lots of other cool stuff like that. I feel like this is very much a little bit more casual Hitman almost, in that you have a lot more weaponry-based outcomes here, whereas Hitman you're typically working with nothing at the start.
Yep. I would say it's almost like somewhere between a Metal Gear Solid and a Hitman.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I think if you're
it's really fun.
someone, I think because I know people who can't really get into like Metal Gear Solid 5, for instance, because it's very, very mechanically dense, which is totally understandable. I'm kind of in a similar boat where I can play it for a bit, but sometimes it can be so much that I just like tap out for the night. I feel like this is kind of like a more streamlined version of that, but doesn't really lose that much of its
Popcorn Metal Gear.
fun. Yeah, exactly. It's like what Ryan
And,
said.
and this is a game for me where, especially if I'm playing co-op with a friend, I'll lose hours in this.
Yeah, I
Oh,
think
yeah.
Wyatt and I had intended to play like half an hour to a little bit longer. We wound up playing for like 2 full hours when we were going.
Yeah.
It was a good time.
Great podcast game as well. Something
Yeah.
to play and then throw on a video or a podcast in the background.
While you're sneaking around.
Especially because you don't want to
Makes
listen to
sense.
the dialogue.
Yeah, you
You do. No, you do want to listen
in
to the
multiplayer when you can riff on it, you absolutely do.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I make
Yeah,
fun
it's
of it
very
every time.
funny. I do think this one just really benefits from being an overall more fun to play package than I think 3 what especially was, which is the one I had the most experience with. I love
This is
that.
the other nice feature is that you can spectate another like
Yes,
your
just remember
teammates
that.
X-ray, which is great.
Oh.
So yeah,
for
if
the,
you're playing
like,
co-op,
really,
you get X-rays from both players, as long as they're
If
like
you-
the big fancy one.
Yeah, that's kind of how they keep everything in sync. If you're doing one of the, like big slow-mo X-rays, it'll just show both players, and if you get one of the really short ones, it'll just play it even faster.
Sure, works really well. All right. Do we have anything else to say about Sniper Elite 5? I'd always like to ask, do people intend to keep playing this one? Is this a thing you're going to keep installed for a little while?
Oh, yeah.
I'm planning on finishing it.
I think in the future, yes. I think there's too many things coming out right now that hold
Yeah,
that will hold my attention more. But once there's like a lull in recent releases, I definitely do want to come back to this because this was a lot of fun.
It's
Yeah,
not an
I-
imminent finish, but this is definitely one that I'll enjoy for a very long time to come.
I have played it before. I will play it again. They just announced another one coming out, and I will probably play that one.
Yeah, I was going to keep this installed. With the new one coming out, I might make space for like get rid of this one so I can play that one when it comes out. But yeah, I had a blast with this. I think this is absolutely worth playing. If you are a shooter fan or a stealth fan and are looking for something on Game Pass, great time. And yeah, just solid fun. A really good,
Highly
well
recommended in
done,
co-op.
high budget FPS, or not FPS, third person, but very fun
It's
sniping
one of
game.
those games where like it's the fifth entry in a series, and you can tell that they've just really refined their formula for so long. It just feels really, really well tuned because they've been doing it for so long.
Oh,
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
oh, what a shot! Look at that brain jiggle
yeah,
physics.
They've had 5
the
in
shots are
this
incredible.
series and 3 or 4 in another series using the same mechanics.
It works great, and don't worry about having not played the others because I think the story's nonsense anyway. So
Yeah.
you will
The story
absolutely
is
be
it's
fine.
World War II, and it pretty much is just a backdrop for where are you in World War II?
World War
And
II,
if
you know what
you're-
to do.
And if you're easily squeamish, which is understandable, you can turn off the X-rays if that's something that keeps you from playing it. You can definitely turn those off.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
All right.
There's a lot of options like that.
Overall, it seems like very highly recommended by our group.
Yeah.
But great way to spend some time. Okay,
Yeah.
let's jump into Octopath 2 next because I think this is another one that we'll have a little bit to say about. So we played Octopath 1 on this show way back. I think it was one of the first round
guys did.
of games we did.
Really?
Yeah.
Yep.
It was like the first or second episode, I think.
Yeah, Alex doesn't
Wow.
even remember. That kind of wraps up what we
Oh,
thought.
I
about the
remember my
first one.
experience. I don't remember when.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, ages and ages ago. I think Octopath 2 is everything that I wanted Octopath 1 to be, which is high praise. Like, I think Octopath 2 is an incredibly fun time. And for JRPGs, it's up there with my recommendations. I think it's very easy to play. And just a solid, good time. But I'm curious what you all who aren't normally
have-
big JRPG people.
A critique about the ease of playing in particular.
Yeah.
I played this game on keyboard and mouse. The controls on keyboard and mouse. However, there's not that many, so it's fine to learn. Kind of nonsense.
Yeah.
Do recommend just playing on controller. I can
How-
imagine
Nonsense.
makes a lot
How?
more sense.
I'm
I don't know,
curious.
it just like it just requested your hands to move like all over the keyboard almost. Like moving around is WAS and D. Interact is enter. Back out of any
Enter?
menu is backspace, but not escape.
Alex, I hate to put you on blast, but you definitely shouldn't have been playing a JRPG with a mouse and keyboard.
Oh no, I absolutely know that, and
But it's good that we had
I could
someone
have
test
easily.
it for us.
My controller was dead, and I was as soon as I learned the controls, it did not matter. But it was just like the first time I was like, I need to get out of this menu, and it's not
Yeah.
escape.
So for reference, I think I'm the only one that's played this game before. I've played a good 5 or 6 hours of this in the past and had always intended to come back to it, and then just got continually delayed by things like Elden Ring coming out. So it was built on the back burner until now, and this was kind of my excuse to get back into it. And yeah, I think this is the one of this group I think I most intend to finish, just because I'm very into the JRPG sphere right now. But for people that I think dropped off of Octopath 1 or are worried about the same pitfalls that Octopath 1 had, and for people that didn't play it, the biggest issue that I always had with Octopath 1 is that until like the very, very post game, there is basically no party interaction. That's not a thing in this one. I think in the bit that we played, most of us probably wouldn't have seen it because we probably all played like one intro
Yeah.
story, I imagine.
Yeah.
But
Took me the full hour to get through an intro story.
yeah, each intro story is about an hour to an hour and a half long.
I
but-
started to struggle, I'll admit.
Yeah, once you get further in, there absolutely is like a good amount of party banter and a lot of the stuff that I thought was just sad that it was missing from Octopath 1. And there are like actual connections. There are side stories involving the characters going and doing things. Like they still have their individual character stories, but they have an acknowledgement that they are in a party with people, which was a big problem point for me with Octopath 1 that I think this game has solved. And overall, I think the stories here are just written better. Like I played 4 of the 8
Oh wow.
intros at this point, and all of them are really good from what I played. They're written well and enjoyable. I'm just curious because I think a bunch of you actually picked characters that I hadn't played, so I'm interested to see if you guys liked your introductions or not.
It looks like you played Oswald here.
I did play Oswald. Oswald was my first character. And I love picking Oswald, who's the wizard sort of magical character that you can start with, because he puts a big warning on the screen that goes, you're going to be locked with him for 2 chapters. If you do. Which I love, because his whole startup shtick is he's basically like locked on an island that you have to get out.
You're in prison. And your like intro is you have to leave. You break out.
Yep.
One immediate thing I will say is I like it again. This tells you how much I didn't enjoy the first one all that much. I can barely remember it, but one of the things I do remember is you have this interesting art style, and then they just cover it in this disgusting filter. And looking at the
It's
footage
better
here,
in
and
this game. It's still
better.
not gone.
There,
No.
we're still getting Brown Town. Look at those god rays.
And you're in this,
It's,
and I will say, like, I really like the lighting for both. I remember liking the lighting in the first one.
Yeah,
as
the
well.
lighting's
It
gorgeous.
just-
The depth of field is used really well.
but like, why is it so? You're in this like rocky kind of forest area. Why does it look like someone took a piss all over the screen?
I will say
don't
that is
understand.
particular to this area. That's not a
Okay.
across the game thing.
the area
That's
that
'cause
the
it-
dancer started in, I felt like was pretty vibrant and
Yeah,
non-pissy.
Agnea has a
Okay.
cool starting area. I haven't done that one yet.
I will say
I
it's
will
better
say that
here.
Mine,
I would-
my starting area was pretty washed out, but I was playing Oswald, who starts on a desolate winter island.
Yeah, Oswald is like winter looking, which I think fits the start
Which
really well.
that's totally
Yeah.
fine. For me, I played the apothecary. It was kind of like a coastal town, and it definitely
Chastity,
looked
I think her name
better.
is.
Casti.
Casti.
Yeah. And that definitely looked better, but it's still like it's just still very dark and muddy, and in places where I feel like it really shouldn't be. And I don't think it's something that fits the tone either. If it fit the tone, I would understand it more, but it's not like a super, at least from what I've played so far, it's not like a super dark, dour tone at all. So I really don't understand.
Yeah, it really is like
why
a
this
color
keeps
grading
happening.
thing. Like, because this
Yeah.
scene looks much better because there's not the weird yellow filter over it. But there's definitely a lot of scenes in the game that are like that, and it was a much bigger problem in the first game. The first game like never really let up on that. But like
From
for an
everything I
example
saw
of the
in the
way to
first
do
game-
it, like Triangle Strategy and Live Alive, both are games with a similar art style to this that are much more vibrant. At least to me, that's a lot more appealing. I think it works better here in 2 than it did in 1, but still not my personal preference.
Because I do like this mix of like 3D environments with lighting, and then these 2D pixel art characters and creatures. I think it's a neat combination. And if you just had a different color grade, I think it would look really, really nice. I just wonder if part of it is like they make things look a little bit muddier than normal to hide texture work. I don't know. It's just
You
I
can
have
still see that
questions.
repeating rock texture and
Which
the
is fine.
faces
It
for the
doesn't
low
bother
poly
me that
geometry.
much. It just I my attention is drawn to it more when I think that the color grading is used to hide it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, the color grading is also like a harsh vignette, which is another effect
Mhm.
that I'm not a huge fan of. But yeah, that's all like just very minor stuff in the grand scheme of this game. I think comparatively, like in the first game, that was it was bad enough to where I think a lot of people just didn't play it because of that style, because it was just really muddy to look at. I wouldn't say that's the same in Octopath 2. But what I really want to get at here is first of all, the combat system, because this is a turn-based JRPG, classically inspired, that uses a bit of a more modern, like Shin Megami Tensei popularized press turn, which is the idea that you have elemental weaknesses that you take advantage of that give you another turn. This is a kind of a similar system, but it's reversed, in which the enemies have a break gauge, and you like take that down by exploiting their weaknesses, and then when you hit 0, you break them and get basically they don't act for a turn, and they take way boosted damage. It's kind of how like elemental weaknesses and whatnot work in these. There's really interesting stuff in that every character plays meaningfully differently. So as we're talking about characters, we'll have things to say, like they all have path actions, which are their things that they do outside of combat. So that can be things like Oswald can mug people at night. Because of course he can.
Also,
and beg people
I don't know,
for
maybe
money.
What was that, Alex?
Which one?
Wood. You were spoken over.
Sorry. Oswald also can, I don't know, maybe other characters can do this too. He can like scrutinize people to find like extra in-depth information.
No, that's specific to him.
Usually that just comes to be, which character do I need to talk to progress the story, at least in the beginning.
Yeah, there are points afterwards where like you can use that in the rest of the game, and that'll do things like you can find information that'll show you where a hidden item is. You'll start a quest or something by solving that. There's lots of really interesting stuff like that throughout the game, and it's much more well utilized here than in Octopath 1. Every character has 2 of these, and they can generally be used in a variety of ways. And there's some overlap, like the apothecary also has the ability to like inquire about people and get some information about them.
That was really cool. I wasn't sure if that was something that was available for other characters.
That's her skill.
But it was so neat to be able to glean more information about a town just by talking to people. And it also just gives every NPC a little bit more flavor, because you would talk to these people and they would give you the generic dialogue. But if you inquire, it's really interesting where it's like, oh, this is an old man who goes to church a lot and he seems really nice and he's with his younger daughter. But then he also uses that to pick up chicks at night. And you're like, wait,
it's like
what?
they're colorful and well written too. Like that's really the thing here, is like it's written much better than the first game. In every place, and like the way that it'll work. So, the apothecary has that inquire thing, which is it works on anyone that's under your level. Oswald's does a similar thing, but it's a percentage chance instead. So you have like a different take on that same ability.
I will say the introduction to the inquire mechanic was very strange, because you start on a ship, right? And then you talk to a bunch of people and you're trying to you have amnesia and you're trying to figure out who you are and why you're out at sea and how you got there. But as you're talking to these people, they're telling you clearly very relevant information related to like the clothes you're wearing and where they are in the world and stuff. But at the bottom of a giant block of text that tells you about the person and what they're saying, it says, "Oh, what kind of information have you gained from this?" And it'll give you bullet points as to what you've learned. Maybe you find a hidden, there's a chance to find a hidden item somewhere, or they tell you something about your main quest or whatever. But it was very strange, because I talked to all of these sailors on the boat, and it kept saying no information has been earned. But then once you're done talking to like 3 or 4 of them, Cassidy just walks over to another part of the boat and then just lays out all of the clearly very important information. It's a very small thing, but it doesn't show off the mechanic very well, because it keeps telling you that you haven't learned any important information, even though if you clearly read the dialogue, it does. Yeah. And she puts all that information together. So it wasn't a very good way of showing off that mechanic at all. And once I got off the boat and I was talking to people and I saw it in action, I thought it was great. It was just a weird way to...
Weird intro. I agree with you, because the last thing that I played of this game right before we started was the introduction for her.
Which I liked overall, to be clear.
Oh, that's a sick lizard. Sorry.
Super fun.
Yeah, that's the thing. This game, excellent enemy design. Some of the best sprite work that I've ever seen. And I do want to especially shout out the Hunter character in this game, because she was... there was a character named Honnet in Octopath 1, which was the like ranger character, but she had a very specific way of speaking that was extremely hard to read and deal with over a long course of time. They just fully dropped that this time. They got rid of it fully, and she just talks like a normal person.
Was it trying to spell out a Cockney accent or something like that?
Yeah, it was like they tried to do an accented thing. It didn't work super well. It was just hard to read and annoying. This time they got rid of that and just gave her like a speaking accent a little bit, but mostly she just speaks normally. Ocha was really fun. She was one of the other ones I played, but she literally basically is Pokemon, where you can have up to 7 creatures that you go and capture while you're fighting them, and then you can just call them out, and you can like pull them out of your pocket, and they'll do an attack. And that's just her ability. It doesn't cost you anything. You just collect them and use them. Or you can butcher them for meat, which is legitimately part of the skill. Which, yeah, is super entertaining and very unique to the character. So I think it's super well handled here. I think when you're looking at this, it's out of the Brown Town thing. It just is very pretty.
Oh, yeah.
In the combat scenes. And yeah, I think overall it is super well handled. I think for Ochette especially, you pick one of 2 creatures at the start where it's like you get a companion animal basically. And from what I can tell, it's just 2 completely different sets of things. Like they have dialogue and other things, and the one that you don't choose just goes away. Like it's just gone. So you even have a choice within that character.
Attacks you or something.
Yeah, it turns purple and then flies away. Attacks you and flies away. So I think it's super interesting and really cool. And yeah, the stories here are great. A lot of them are more standout. And I feel like having played 4 of the 5 and then started a 5th one with the Alchemist one, I think it really is just a case of like this is just a much better written game than the first one. I think they really took criticisms for that game to heart and made a more interesting story. Like Oswald, I'm sure, Alex, you'll have stuff to say about this. I thought his introduction was great.
I was really engrossed. I thought that was enough of a hook. I mean, is it the most original? No, but I really enjoyed it, and I thought it was fun to be like planning this prison escape for a crime that you were potentially wrongfully imprisoned for.
Yeah.
Kind of unclear if it was wrongful imprisonment. I think the game wants you to think so. And he's like a magic guy, so like through the beginning of the game, he just like basically doesn't have dialogue. There's like an internal monologue, but like he has a muzzle on, so he doesn't cast spells.
Yeah, you literally put a muzzle on you so you can't use spells, which is very interesting.
My problem, and this might be a me problem, in fact, I'm certain it's a me problem, was that I got to the first boss fight, and then I got my ass cleanly handed to me on a platter repeatedly.
I will say Oswald's, I think, does have the most challenging starter boss. You really have to take advantage of the elemental stuff.
Wow. They really gave me a whole 3 fights to learn the game, and then this is the boss they throw at me.
Yeah, they don't let down with the bosses. I think you'll see later in this footage, I do die after having played a lot of this game to the boss once and then do it again.
I thought that it was an interesting mechanically. You have to constantly be thinking on your feet about everything in the fight. But man, oh man, does the boss hit like a truck and sometimes just takes my characters out.
I will say, I think my least favorite part, because I played the entire intro for Casti and then like a little bit beyond that, not too much. I think my least favorite part was the boss because it felt very elongated. And I think the reason for it felt just like it took a while. And I think the reason for that is they wanted to, because there's 2 enemies that you fight, right? And then they eventually become one. But I think the idea is that they wanted to throw as many status effects at you as possible to encourage you to make concoctions mid-fight so that you were using everything that you learned up until that point, which totally makes sense. But especially when there's only one of you trying to deal damage to 2 enemies at the same time, and you're taking a lot of that time to heal yourself and learn how the concoctions are used, it just elongates the fight to a point where there was a moment where I'm just like, what am I doing? What am I doing here? I'm just kind of whacking on these guys with an axe, and it's just it got to a point where I was like, I get it. I get how concoctions work. This is a really cool mechanic. Can we move on, please?
Yeah, I do agree. I think a lot of the characters have slightly too beefy starter bosses.
I don't know if it was like assuming I played the last game or something.
No, I think they are just long bosses. Like it's across the game. They're a little bit long. It gets less like that as it goes on, but that's mostly due to you having a full party and being able to do a lot more things in a turn. Whereas like even now, like I'm playing Ochet's introduction on a party of full characters, but when you're playing that introduction, you still only play her. So you see it as if you had just picked her from the start, basically. And that means you're still dealing with the one-person combat, which is a little bit tedious after a while, because you really are just doing one thing at a time. With Ochet, it's not as big of an issue, because you have a lot of options. If you can like summon all your beasts and stuff, which do different things, or you have her own attacks or her own skills. And the whole like the charging up turn by turn thing lets you get like really creative with even one-on-one fights. If you can get crazy and do like one of her skills, it shoots an additional arrow at a different target for every additional like point that I spend to make it better. And it's very cool. So yeah, I think it's overall just a really fun turn-based system. I do think they have like a pretty rigid structure here of wanting you to get at least 4 characters pretty quickly, because that will fill out your party. Which can put kind of a damper on some of the speeds of the storylines, because you'll obviously be like, I need to go collect a character before I progress these other storylines. But I'd say it's much less of an issue here than in the first game, just because there are like natural breakpoints in most of the stories that are being told. So it feels like you can go off and like have a reason to get an adventuring party before continuing. Especially in Oswald, like once you get out of that prison, you can go. It feels like there's a natural break point that you can be like, I'm gonna go gather my party and then do these things before progressing the story. It felt like that for at least all the 4 that I played.
In the Oswald intro too, I don't know if you keep that companion. I kind of assume not, but there's like I like that like the intro of it is like Oswald's like, I have to find another guy because I can't do this escape alone.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of support characters where you sort of have to keep the companion for their entire time, or also because I haven't seen outside of the immediate dancer quest, so I don't know if I don't know if you're able to keep the friend through your journey until you find at least a second party member.
Yeah, I think typically the way that Octopath 1 handled that stuff is usually they would show up for the character story, but they wouldn't be a party member for the rest of the thing. And I think that's probably pretty similar here. Like when you're at least running around with the full party, it's not like I have extra people, unless I've used one of the character skills, because there are character skills that let you get another person. So I can go up to anyone in town later, and I can literally give them food, and they'll join my party for a little while. And they're like single use. They've got special abilities they can use and stuff. There's a few characters that have things like that, and yeah, it's just very. There's a lot of options here in a way that I felt like there weren't in the first Octopath. As well as I don't think we can overstate just the writing improvement.
At least from the
dramatic.
controller thing here, it looks like even though we're playing this on Game Pass, you're able to use a PlayStation.
I was playing on
controller.
PS5 because I already owned
Okay.
this game, so I was playing the copy that I owned and not re-downloading it from Game Pass and starting from zero, just continuing my actual playthrough. But yeah, I do legitimately think this is one of the ones where you can't really go wrong with a starting character. At least it sounds like, Wyatt, you enjoyed the apothecary story.
I did. It was a good. Although I will say, having your main character have amnesia, very very overplayed. But it was a good enough like.
It's one of 8
use
characters.
It's
of
more
it.
interesting
just-
when it's one of 8, right, and not
I suppose.
only main
I
character.
suppose. Yeah. Yeah. But I do think there's some interesting mysteries they set up, where you're wearing the clothes of a group of people that have been hurting a lot of people. So you're wondering what that's about. There's like a bloody book in your bag and stuff, and you're like, "What's this? How did this get here?" Yeah, no, it's a good mystery. I was definitely like, I want to learn more.
Yeah.
About it.
And I also get the inkling, like, this is maybe, you could consider this a minor spoiler for Chapter 1s of some characters, but, it's Chapter 1 is the starting point for most of them. There's a few, which particularly are the one that the video is playing right now is Ochet, and the end of hers has the same, like, through line as, I forget the name of the dude, the priest dude who's like a Tenenbaum, Terminus, something like that. He's a T name. Uh, he has a whole plot line where like the start of his story goes back in time to like gods fighting each other, which is also just really cool. That's like you don't even play as him, you just play as a bunch of gods fighting each other at the very start of time, and it breaks
Oh.
into
Play
like, oh
Smite as the priest.
yeah, it's pretty wild. And then it fast forwards and becomes like a murder mystery as you're trying to figure out.
Ooh.
This priest had a meeting scheduled with a bishop, and that bishop gets murdered, and you're trying to figure out what's going on. Are you being blamed for it, and all this? And
What's
it's really
the
interesting.
priest's special spell for this? Is it like investigation type things?
He's
or
got a
is
few
it,
things. So he's got some investigation type stuff. He can also coerce people
Oh.
into helping him, which is an interesting thing.
There's a lot of different forceful words for special character actions for like requesting help. Coerce, entreat, which is the dancers, which is begging for money. There's what was
Inquire.
Inquire? That's the other.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Quiet Series. Throne, who's the assassin, has ambush, which is basically you, and that's a very fun one. Of you literally just like knock someone out without fighting them, and that often opens up a pathway in the world where you might have noticed in certain towns and stuff, there's NPCs blocking a pathway. The way to
Oh my
deal with
God.
them is to play Throne and then go up to them,
Wow.
ambush them, and you knock them out safely, and then you can get past them into areas that you otherwise wouldn't have been able to reach. Which is super cool.
into jerky. You didn't use him as a pet.
You have to turn him into jerky. You can't use the iguana as a pet. You need to feed your
Damn.
town. And yeah, I feel like it just flows really well. I heavily recommend. I think Oswald is actually a great starting character, even though the game kind of recommends against taking him because of the 2-chapter setup of his storyline. You have to play a lot more than you normally would to get through his storyline, but it's a very strong start. Same with the priest dude, whose name I'm forgetting because I played him months and months ago. And Ochet is also very fun. If you want to do like the Pokemon taming thing, that'll give you your ability to tame and capture creatures, which is very cool. And Throne especially, I think, has a very interesting, and like if you want to get that like dark vengeance storyline, Throne's got a really cool one. Of her whole shtick at the start is she's like part of a mob family essentially, and doesn't want to be in it, and learns that in order to get out, she needs to go kill her quote unquote mother and father of the mob family that have the keys to like a magic collar on her, and it's very interesting. I think it's a very cool storyline, and it feels a lot more interesting than the base game, not base game, but the Octopath 1 equivalents for these. Which brings me back to why I brought up the Apothecary storyline, because I picked the Apothecary in Octopath 1. Real boring. He's an incredibly boring man with nothing going on. And
I showed you love plants. That's my whole deal.
his whole deal is very simple. And granted, I didn't finish his storyline, so I don't know if it gets more interesting. But it really was like an hour of just, I'm going to help people. And him going, I'm going to help people. And I'm going to continue helping people with no depth. And having
He's a
even just
seed
like
guy.
played the first like 10 minutes of Cassie's storyline, was a much stronger introduction to the exact same character archetype, but in a much more interesting way. And I think that's really the strength here, is that there's a lot of stronger introductions. And I've heard from people that Particio, Agnea, and the other characters here are also really good. I'm sure Hikari's really interesting, being like the Eastern warrior and whatnot. So
Yeah, I thought about trying that one too, and someday
Yeah.
I might.
because I do remember the one storyline that I did really enjoy in Octopath 1 was the warrior storyline, which was like an old general rallying a town to a very like classic Seven Samurai setup, which is very fun, always a classic, but it was definitely not the most standout of things. So I'm hoping the strength to storyline here continues. And it seems like there's some plot through lines here, because Ochet and Temenis is the actual name of the dude on the screen. Have some links, it seems, where like Temenis learns of an oncoming prophecy about the night coming, and Ochet's storyline is about the same thing. So it seems like there actually will be some type of overarching story in this one. Maybe not for every character, but it seems like at least those two of them will have something interesting. All right. Any other thoughts on Octopath 2? People think they're going to continue this one.
Very
I-
similar boat as to Sniper Elite for me. There's just too many things coming out right now, but I don't know, maybe in the future.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same way. I enjoyed enough what I played, even though I got whooped by the boss. But I think I will return to this someday. Probably not right away, but someday.
Yeah, I think for me this is the one I'm going to keep playing of the games that we picked out, just because this has been on my list to finish for ages. And this was my excuse to start it up again, and now that I'm back into it, I think I need to finish it before I forget. So it feels like it's moving up the list right now. But all right,
Yeah.
do we want to talk about Flintlock next, Alex?
Oh boy, Flintlock: The Siege of Dawn is.
I think we're gonna have a lot to say about this game.
3 pages of notes, Ryan. 3 pages.
I think this game lost me points in Fantasy Critics, so I already don't like it. But anyway.
What did it score there?
It's like a 69 or something.
Oh,
like a -1. Yeah.
So this is, it's very much, what's the style of combat genre-wise that's used to describe this game? Hack and slash?
Yeah, it's like a hack and slash Soulsy thing.
I'd consider this less Souls, like, yeah, you go retrieve your experience, but I would consider this, at least the style of combat, I'd say it is definitely more on the lines of a little Witcher 3, but very much God of War feeling. I'd say it's more
God of War,
but
Jack,
in the way that
in
the way the combat in the way the combat wants to flow.
Yeah,
I'll say.
It feels a little bit more like a more casual Souls-like sort of combat to me.
I think out of anything, it felt the most like oh my god, Ryan, we were just talking about this.
Banishers.
Oh my god, thank you, Jesus.
Yeah.
Oh god, I gotta play that.
Banishers.
My memory's
Banishers
getting
like
worse and worse.
Last year. Banishers Ghosts of New Eden, which is another very cool game that Wyatt and I want to finish.
Right, with the ghost wife.
Yeah, with the ghost wife.
Is that on Game Pass?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, what was it? Oh.
No, we just bought it because we're sticklers for Don't Nod, which I think is the developer. I could be wrong.
I was here.
Don't Nod or Deck Nine.
I assumed.
I think it's Don't Nod.
I would be a fan of how the combat wants to play out. I don't think it achieves that through various technical issues that I have run into, and it seems only me, so I can't hold that against the game in like an official capacity.
Probably could.
But it seems like I'm the only person who's having these issues, Alex.
Okay.
What did anyone
Welcome
else
to my world,
have constant
Alex.
frame? Did anyone else just have constant frame drops every 5 seconds?
I got some weird ones. You'll notice in this footage that like my brig is running a 3080 Ti, and Flintlock had some problems occasionally.
This is wild.
I've tried this on both my old computer
and
my new computer with a 4090. I still got frame drops every 5 seconds.
I think it has to be a specific setting or something, right? Like that we both just have enabled.
I tried all the graphic settings on this, whether it was, uncapped, 120, 60, 30 for the frames, or like graphic settings from highest to potato, any combination of those, whatever the frame rate was, it couldn't hold a steady.
I think I was running on high, and I got some stuttering occasionally, but nothing that I would find super obnoxious or like impacted the game at all. And I think I was getting between like 90 and 100 frames.
I was gonna say, you see, the thing is, like, with the timing of these attacks here, there's a lot of like, there's this windup is being held for a while, but then the follow-up attack is really quick. You need to have your timing down because there's really obnoxiously tight
windows are really
block
tight
and parry
here.
windows.
Yeah.
And if there's any frame rate loss or stuttering, you're screwed.
There's also a whole system about like if you take any damage, you lose your streak of stuff.
I found that
there's a
weird.
lot of mechanics in this game. I like another thing with the Souls-like thing. The sort of Bloodborne, like I described it as the Bloodborne rally mechanic, but for XP. I think Ryan, when we were talking about this, you had a better way to describe that. But it's like the Devil May Cry.
It's a Devil May Cry like
counter.
hit meter basically for your XP essentially. But there's a few enemies, if I can find one in here. There are like some spider enemies, and when you're fighting those, where
it's like 75% of the time you don't feel like you got hit in a justified way. It's like, that felt like a cheap thing, or that's a really obnoxious
it's hard. It doesn't feel tight. It feels very loose in terms of action game terms. It's kind of hard to put into words exactly what's going on, but it just feels like maybe the hitboxes aren't super aligned.
Before we continue, did we give an overview?
Yeah,
like,
it's an
story.
action game. It's an action
did?
Souls like
Okay.
thing.
It's an
Do we
action
wanna-
game. The overall
Okay.
plot is it's sort of like this Age of Gunpowder setting, as you can see from the general aesthetics for that. It starts
play
immediately
Nor.
as a view. Yeah, you play Nor, a soldier in the what's the army called? Some
Just like the coalition. Or
Yeah, the
something?
coalition is
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
they refer to it, I think.
She's what's known as a sapper.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which
I'm
is an
not
actual
sure what
real
that
world
is.
term. That's like essentially bombers. They run up and
I
plant
didn't know
bombs
that.
and then run away.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, that's a real thing.
and it's the game opens with you guys trying to protect a gate from a horde of undead that's swarming you, and it doesn't go well.
Yeah, basically Nor
No.
blows a rift in the barrier that protected everyone from the gods accidentally, and that's a real problem that you then get a little god buddy who helps you try to solve.
Yeah.
But it's interesting
Actually-
just because like most of this I think is interesting, but just isn't communicated super clearly.
So
There's a lot about this game in multiple aspects where I can see what it's going for, but it doesn't reach it, and the amount of wasted potential isn't necessarily the right word, but the amount of times it like takes the wrong turn for where it could have gone great really annoys me.
I think it feels just
I
less polished
actually-
than it should.
I've also, for
actually-
the record, finished this game. This is one of the games that I have completely played through this month.
I actually think I want to play this a little bit more. I just didn't have a ton of time this month to play, and I want to.
Yeah.
I want to get further into this.
It is relatively short. I like what was the going like somewhat through doing. I think I got through all the side quests. It took about like 23 hours
nice.
for me.
Yeah, not too bad.
I was actually pleasantly surprised with a lot of, at least like lore and world design and building and stuff, because I felt like I saw hardly any marketing for this game, and what I did see looked kind of real generic.
Yeah,
And
I agree.
There is some pretty generic stuff in here, but I actually found a lot of the visual designs of stuff to be quite interesting.
Yeah, the setting's a little bit more interesting than I think the marketing made it look like.
If the frame rate issue was solved for me at the very least, I know the combat would feel a lot better being able to switch between axe or hammer and parrying with a gun. I really like that.
Okay, so this footage right here actually brings up a good thing that I wanted to talk about. Something that
how
really drives me
frustrating it is
crazy.
trying to climb.
So here's the thing. I don't actually think you're supposed to climb this, to be honest.
Yeah,
but
you're
it does
not.
remind me. So one of the things I initially like is how much verticality there is in all the different areas. There's a lot of jumping around. There's a lot of like jumping puzzles. There's a cool mechanic where you basically teleport from from spot to spot, and it kind of lets you go around these huge chasms and mountains and stuff. It feels really cool. It feels really cool up until Nora has to grab a ledge, and then I start
Yes.
pulling my hair
Yeah.
out because
Yeah.
the
She's
double
real
the double
finicky
jump.
about what she'll grab.
Yeah. And I think the reason for that is the double jump and like the mid-air dash looks really cool because you take a pinch of gunpowder and you throw it behind you and it launches you forward or
But it
upward.
like stops your momentum completely.
Well, there's that, and I also think a lot of the time, because there's a lot of flipping, they make it look really neat, but there's so much flipping that I think there's a problem with ledge detection, where a lot of the times you're at like just the right height to grab something, and you just don't. And fall damage really stacks very quickly. So they really punish you for not making your jumps, but you really have to rely on the ledge grab sometimes. And when it all works, you can get around areas in a bunch of different unique ways that feels really cool. But if you don't,
that shot missed.
Yeah,
But
so
if you don't,
while the gun is on screen, I'll quickly take over your conversation.
This
and
is the
return to you,
polar
Wyatt.
opposite of Sniper Elite.
Which is funny because
I
it
don't
doesn't
know.
have a
That
Sniper
looked
Elite
like
camera.
Sniper Elite.
But the rifle on controller is one of the most frustrating things I've ever used because
So,
it does
here's-
not
Yeah.
have a like separate aim slider for your sensitivity. It just takes your camera sensitivity, and so it just moves wildly. Like it is.
Well, when you
absolutely
breathe
not,
in, it's slightly like it gives you a slight sticky.
yeah, but it's not enough. Like it
It's
absolutely is not
absolutely not,
a good solution for controllers.
Now, on the other hand, I played with keyboard and mouse, And I don't know if this was an
Oh.
issue with controller, but it looks like it may be still. I felt like some of the movement felt very slidey. Like I'm on ice, basically.
Yeah,
I
it's a
found that a
floaty
lot
game
of
in
enemies
general.
have like this is another thing that could be a hitbox thingy or just animation or like attack tracking thing where it's an enemy will start like a building's length away from me with an attack that's just like, okay, they're railing up, that doesn't look like it's a charge attack, and then they just teleport right to my location and hit me in the head with an axe. And I'm just like, cool, another unjustified hit. This feels amazing.
The pace of combat is so weird. Timings between like a wind up to actual attack can feel either way too long or way too short. It just feels strange, and it felt like they were trying to like create unique attack patterns for enemies, but it never feels good, or it a lot of the times doesn't feel good, and it also looks very awkward and doesn't look right in this
I
world
kind of
at
thought there
all.
was quite a few things that looked a little awkward in this.
Yeah, I think this is really because this is made by the same developers as Ashen, and Ashen is a game that I think a lot of people really liked.
Should I even
But
know
I
that?
also think Ashen has it's a Souls like that has a very like some almost flat art style. Looks great, a very cool art style. It's much more low poly than this. A lot more
Shade
low
Kung Fu.
detail. Uh, yeah, it's similar to Absolver if you played Absolver in art
So,
style, and
I
I think
tried.
that just works better here for this developer because it feels like they moved to really high fidelity, but maybe didn't focus as much on getting the hitboxes and like the animations as tied in as Ashen did.
Yeah.
And that feels really weird here, just because this is a much tighter action game than Ashen was. And there's a lot of things here that don't quite connect for me. Like one of them too is like this is a very small control thing. Is that you're pressing Y on your face button to trigger curse attacks from your Inky, who's the god dude who's helping you out, and then you use your regular attacks with the right bumper and right trigger, which to me is just an awkward thing because you're like bouncing between both for attacks. And I think the reason they wanted you to do that is so you can hit both at once, but it doesn't feel as good as I think they wanted it to. There's lots of
Yeah,
small
because
stuff like
there's a
that.
whole thing in the skill tree of like where if you can
You
time
like
your
hit them
attack
at the same
perfectly with an
time.
inky thing, then
It
there's
just
like
it
bonus
doesn't
damage
feel
and
good
stuff
to
like that.
do.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
Um,
little stuff like that. I think this
Yeah,
game just doesn't feel as
there-
tight as Ashen did.
There was just a thing you did there where you like dodged out of the way of that attack, but it still
and then it still hit you.
Yes,
Yeah.
the tracking for this enemy in particular was really egregious. And like attacks just came out incredibly quickly.
This is still, I think, the first area. It gets worse later on. There's, yeah.
Yeah,
This is-
there's
this
there's
is
a lot
almost
of
a game-
moments where like, wait, that hit? What?
Yeah,
This is a game
like I said,
that-
75% of the time, I'm very upset to see that even without the frame rate problems, that's still an issue.
Yeah, I think honestly,
Yeah,
I wonder if a lot of it, because to me, I noticed that the most when enemies had shields. I didn't notice it very often on enemies that didn't have shields.
like he is just locked to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
I-
no matter
I did
your,
not
like,
know how to
rotation
dodge
or-
this dude, because anytime I would try, it just would still hit me anyway.
I think
And I'm
it's
sure
like
that's a skill issue,
you-
but
he has the red button right or he has the red circle on him when he charges. I think that's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
case for the pistol parry at
yeah,
that
you
point.
can see like how hard it is to hit a rifle shot.
Yeah.
And just things
Oh,
like
he
that
didn't.
are
Yeah, that's a pistol parry situation to get him to stop in his tracks. I was very happy that pretty like in the first area there's a side quest that gets you a hammer as like an alternate axe weapon that is super effective against shielded enemies. So I'm just like, okay, cool.
yeah, I should have
this
switched to
is-
that.
This is
'Cause
my
I was using the
primary
fire
weapon.
axe thing for most of my playthrough,
Yeah,
which is
fire.
fun. I do
had
like
the
the fire axe.
Fire axe. I immediately abandoned Nor's default weapon. I had the fire axe and I had the hammer.
Yeah.
The armor breaker hammer for my like two main things. And I don't think I switched off of Nor's default pistol and I just leveled that up until one of the last two bosses that was a huge pain in the neck, and I'm just like, okay, I need to like Google strategies because this is it had the FromSoft awful boss design of like if an enemy is too big, but the like this boss, not the final boss, wasn't too big. It was still acting like a giant Souls boss. where it's constantly going out of camera, zipping behind you. The camera's not fast
You're,
enough to
you're talking
follow.
about the zippy Souls bosses, and not the regular Souls giant bosses, which are just big beefy boys that you hit on the butt. You're talking about the crazy dancing lion style ones that do the crazy stuff.
Flailing enemy, flailing beast type.
Yeah, that swing
bosses.
behind your camera and your camera doesn't track to them. Yeah, I noticed that a lot with Flintlock too, like the camera being an enemy, essentially
This
for
game-
some time.
I feel like
That's what it has
love-
most in common with Souls games for me, is the camera's your enemy.
I'd really love to come back and see this game have a sequel and play that sequel where it's more polished.
Funny you mention that. They sequel bait this game really hard at the end.
Oh, do they?
Do they really?
They really do.
Wonderful.
I'd be
I don't
interested
think it's
in
going to
s-
happen. I would
I'm
like
doubtful.
for that to happen because I really want to see this improved. Like, I can
Mhm.
see that, oh, wow, this had so much potential. This has, like, the ability to feel like that little gameplay bit that I'm missing between God of War and The Witcher, type stuff like that. I like very chunky hack and slash things like that.
I also
Also,
just
is
wonder
her-
if like I would
is
have
her
enjoyed this
run-
more without the Souls stuff of you losing your thing
Mhm.
when you die. Like,
Yeah,
I
I
feel like
think I
legitimately
would've-
this game is just not tuned well enough to justify doing that as much as it does.
Also, for anyone
I-
else, is her run animation, does it just look weird to anyone else, or is it just me?
I
It
think it's
kinda
because she like
does.
full rotates with the front of her body, so if I tilt the
Yes.
stick even slightly, she'll
Yes.
like whip to that direction.
That's what I'm talking about.
Which
It
looks
feels
really
looks
awkward.
very,
Oh, so-
very strange.
But we've talked about, overall, like, that's that we talked about gameplay, we talked about art style. Sound design for this game is unfortunately another nitpick.
It's like a
that I
weird mixed
have.
bag. There's some good stuff,
It's-
and there's some stuff that just sounds very tinny and
There's
underwhelming.
a lot of parts in it, yeah, with the tinny and annoying. But it's like tinny and annoying, but it feels like it's in the techno genre to me, which I feel like doesn't fit the setting whatsoever.
This is like the same thing we were talking about Immortals of Avium with, where there's like this obsession now with doing tech fantasy, and making it this like
It's just the age of gunpowder. You
Mhm.
can't do fucking tech
it just
music
looks
with
weird.
this.
Like
It's
it looks
wrong.
weird when it's thrown into a setting.
Yeah, I want them to like more lean into the Napoleonic.
Yeah, the Napoleonic stuff is the
into it.
most interesting thing here.
Yeah.
Absolutely feels like they should lean into that. And yeah, this is a really interesting game because I can't say that I had a bad time playing it, but I also think I think in
I kept coming back
comparison
no matter
to
how many
games,
problems I had. I wanted to finish it.
Yeah.
I think for me the real problem here is that this is coming out right around Black Myth Wukong, Shadow of the Erd Tree, a bunch of other stuff in sort of a similar genre, and it doesn't feel as good as any of them.
I feel like
that's
this
sort
of
is
the
really
biggest
faded
we'll know.
to-
I'm starting to see a lot of people talk about Souls-like burnout after this came out, which I
Yeah.
found very interesting.
Because I think a
Don't
lot of it
know
is
if
like
those
Shadow
people
of the Erd
played it or
Tree
not, but-
took Souls-like combat as far as you can go, and I think even FromSoft has talked about this, where they're like, we can't continue just doing harder
Good.
Souls-like bosses now because you can't make it harder than we did without it becoming super frustrating.
Yeah.
Sorry, this is just related to what's going on screen, and maybe there's something about it later in the skill tree. Did anybody feel like there should be like a drop on your enemy sort of melee attack that there wasn't?
There's one for the gun.
Is. Yeah, there's
there
a
is
thing you
one?
can
Okay.
get later
For the
on. There's like a
gun,
black
though?
powder.
I think there is one for the melee for the axe. as
Yeah,
well.
there's a thing you can do that
Um,
like you drop down and do a black powder explosion.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't have that.
I
this
guess I
time.
just had not.
Actually, what you're going through here with the occupied area, that's another thing that I want to talk. Taking a break from sound design because I want to get back to that. But with this, I found so if you die a lot and like lose your souls or reputation, things like that, it is really hard to level up in this game at a certain point with how exponential the experience costs are for skills. There are not enough enemies that feel, I guess, good fighting to want to grind that. And once you complete an outpost, I feel like a pretty big majority of open world enemies here are in the outposts that once you clear, there's no longer enemies there. So it's a lot harder to, go around scrounging for fodder to get reputation from.
Yeah.
Also, this is a great example
Of the ledge grab thing.
The ledge grabbing,
can I
yeah.
clamber to that or not? It's very hard
The
to
thing is,
tell.
I know you're supposed to because I did find a thing at the end of this, so I know I was intended to do this, and that was absolutely like
Oh,
bounce off and
that made
Oh
my
my
stomach
God.
lurch.
You really need the video game yellow ledge here almost to tell you where
Well,
you're
here's the
supposed to
thing.
be able to.
They do have it in a lot of areas. The problem is that you can't tell whether you can latch onto
it's
something
inconsistent.
because the detection is so inconsistent. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I feel like that's just kind of a running thread here of like a lot of the stuff here is like I don't think any of us disliked playing Flintlock, but there's a lot of
No,
I think we
no.
come off of it
Why?
with more complaints than we have.
I just
Extremely
wish it was
standout
better.
things to
I
say.
wish it was better because I'm interested.
Yeah, like I
want this
want
to
it
be
to be
good.
really good, but I think it's just under that bar for me.
There's,
I kind of would be curious to see another game in this setting.
I would play the sequel
And,
to
like-
this. I don't know
Well,
that I would
and-
finish
sequel
this
to this-
one, but I would
and
play the
I
sequel.
think I think we've talked about this before. I want sequels to games like this more so than games that I truly love. You know?
do you guys care about spoilers for the?
Let's not spoil it on the Game Pass episode. Yeah.
Because I was gonna
We don't
say
wanna
if
spoil
you do
anything.
if you do want like a sequel, it's almost guaranteed to be in a certain location that is.
Let's
Not
leave the spoilers out. Yeah.
I'd be curious to see another game in this setting that plays completely differently too, though.
Yeah, it's just, I think
that
I just
makes
came
sense.
off of this feeling like it kind of didn't know what it was. Like it was trying to be both a Souls-like and an action game, and didn't really succeed at being either. Because they build this as like a casual Souls-like a bunch, but I think this game is harder to play than most actual
I don't
Souls-likes.
think it is. Yeah.
There's just a lot of like weird things. Like it's hard to tell what this game is going for, and I think a lot of points that's a big problem. The combat doesn't feel as tight as it needs to for the stuff that they're going for. There's lots of like interesting abilities, but they're really far in the tree and they're hard to access at the start. There's lots of bits like this where it's just like all of a sudden I'm dead and I have
what
no
is that?
idea
Yeah.
what happened.
What was that?
Fighting
Yeah,
more
it
than one
seems-
enemy also very, very tiresome if you don't have specifically like group takedown tactics with Enki.
It seemed like
is-
you sort of
Go for
walked
it.
into a middle of an area that had like a bunch of enemies you couldn't really see, but the game's levels are open enough that like that should almost be expected. Like
Yeah.
I feel like they line up the enemies as if it's, like a Souls game where you're gonna be taking a specific path, but then give you movement abilities and a wide enough area that you don't have to do that. And then
Well, yeah, because it felt like I had found like one of the rifts over there, so I was like, oh, maybe I'm supposed to use this rift to get to the next area. But no, I was just doing the wrong thing and went in the wrong area essentially. And like this time I go through a different path and it goes much better for me. But still, I think there's just a lot of weird edges like that here.
It definitely feels like a studio that reached a little too far.
Yeah, that's a good
wonder-
way to put it.
Which is a shame.
There's so many more mechanics that I want to touch on, like with that XP doubling shrine statue thing. But I wanted to get back to, especially seeing you pick up the resource, I wanted to get back to the sound design and my problems with it. So not talking about soundtrack anymore, like the actual like sound design, soundscape of the game here. I got so tired of hearing one of the same 3 lines over and over and over again each time you pick up a resource, because it would happen every time you interact with a resource.
I love that.
Oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's interesting. I'm sure you'll find.
I just love
Oh,
every
that's
time he says,
interesting.
"What did you find?" It just keeps going on about it every time.
I got tired of that so fast. And there's another like this goes with like the ledge pathfinding and things like that. But for your little AI companion Enki, there's he like is a funny little teleporting fox deity guy. He blips and bloops all over the place. When you either get too far away from him, or if he gets stuck on uneven ground, or maybe just for the hell of it sometimes, he'll blink in and out really suddenly right back to you. That sound effect is so grating to me. It sounds like an enemy attack is what it does. So it always puts me on edge.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And that was
Um,
happening constantly.
Yeah. I don't know. I think to put my like overall thoughts about this game, about Flintlock into words, I think for me it's a mix of Souls-like fatigue. First of all, like I do think that is a real thing. Souls-likes have been so popular for so long that I think I'm starting to just kind of feel the want for action games that don't have all of those elements. And I think the biggest issue with Flintlock is that it still has a lot of that Souls-like stuff, but is not a tightly enough constructed combat system to warrant them. Like to me, it has the same problem as Lords of the Fallen, the new one, had, where it's not a badly put together game, but it has just enough rough edges that it makes the harshness of a Souls-like feel really, really punishing.
That it's frayed.
Yeah, and I do think this, like, I think I can see myself finishing this game, but I think it'll be after I finish like Black Myth Wukong and a few other things that are on my list, just because there's a lot of other stuff that I think is more constructed in a way that I enjoy playing a little bit more.
I do think there's definitely people out there who can look past rough edges like this and kind of see what the developers are going for underneath. I do think there's going to be a lot of people that will enjoy this despite itself.
I actually think
I
I
also
might
see that you don't
come
have any
back and
armor
try
on.
it some more.
Yeah, this is early in the game still. I think I can get my first like armor set right after this. Yeah, I mean,
I must go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead, Alex.
I almost feel like there's parts of this game that make me feel like it's almost like a PS3 or PS4 era game just made in the PlayStation 5 era, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of got some of those. I don't even know how to put it into words.
It still feels like it's trying to figure out 3D melee combat in the year 2024, which is not a great thing to be feeling.
Yeah, I think for me, it really is like, it's that combination of things I talked about. And I also think this game just doesn't have a hook. Like, I don't think there's a thing here that hooks you compared to other ones. When I think of like Lies of P, the whole Pinocchio thing is just interesting. Like, it's just a super interesting setup. And I think the Napoleonic setting is cool here, but like Wyatt and I were talking about Banishers, and I think Banishers has a similar, not the same, but similar setting and utilizes it a lot more effectively.
I would say I do think a hook for some people would be the traversal. I mean, I wish the ledge grabbing was more consistent, but the level of verticality in the ways, even in these like towns that you can liberate, the different ways you can get to like the main boss is pretty cool, and it feels cool sometimes. But
The hook for me was parry with gun.
Yeah, parry with gun's
like
good. Parry with gun is good.
The hook for me was the like world and lore, but I you know, the actual characters, maybe the god guys kind of like him maybe, but like
writing
a couple of main characters and stuff is
oh god, that's not the writing. Oh my god, there's so much to talk about this game.
This game's
not a big
scarred,
hook.
Alex.
Yeah, what's your writing comment, Alex? Because I think you finished the game. The rest of us did not.
Yeah.
So
the overall writing, it's I think the story is like very passable B fantasy with some fantastic character moments in it.
that's good. That it
Honestly.
might be strong enough to make me finish it. If it
There's
has
some
good
really
stuff.
good characterization of Anki. There's some unfortunately there's the unfortunate shtick of withholding information, making characters mistrustful of each other, things like that they're gonna get through the course of the story. But there's some really good like mini character moments for Enki. In one of the later areas of the game, he'll be like, "Nor, what's that?" And she'll look and go like, "What? That's a clothesline. Don't tell me you've never seen a clothesline before." And he's just like, "A clothesline."
Yeah, it almost
Clothesline. And
say
he
it
keeps
like that,
repeating the
Alex.
word like he's chewing on it in his mouth because he finds it so interesting because he's never experienced a clothesline in the underworld.
It almost reminds me of what I had hoped Forspoken would be. In a bizarre way, like because not to compare this game to Forspoken, because I think absolutely differently this game is much better. But like the whole relationship between Cuff and what's her name, it feels like this is actually hitting that more so than Forspoken did, and it's also Nor is not a frustrating character to play as. Like she's not making decisions that make me go, I or like saying things that make me want to stop playing the game. Like at no point did any nor say anything that was like, oh, I don't like this character anymore.
Given
She's
her
very
character
much
background,
entrenched in the
Yeah.
world.
Slight side note.
entrenched.
Slight
Okay,
side
well.
note. I love the hosts, and I love the
They're super
The
cool.
coffee
Yes.
owner
This is
design is
awesome.
so cool.
I've heard people say like, oh, this design comes out of nowhere. What the heck is this? I don't care. It's
Who
so
cares?
cool.
I think
I love
it
it.
does.
I think
but,
it's a
like,
really fun, fantastical element for an otherwise, like quote unquote grounded in real. Oh God, oh fuck
It
me, the
reminds me of,
fashion
like-
system. God damn it, that's another thing about this game. It doesn't show the parts of the outfits that are different besides color. There's so many different coattails for the jackets that it doesn't show off.
Yeah, I wish there was a preview.
I'm sorry,
option.
I snapped
Yeah.
with that. They have awful previews for the fashion. God, that needs to change.
Fashion is a big motivator for me in games, and
Especially because
I agree.
it costs so much reputation for some certain pieces of gear, and then you get to be so disappointed if the coattails look like trash.
All right. Well, I
trip.
think that's a good note for us to kind of start wrapping up the discussion on this one on, because we've been talking about it for a fair amount of time. So again, like Alex, you did finish this game. Does anyone else intend to finish this right now or revisit it later?
I might.
Not right now.
Oh, that jump!
I would say that
If-
jump made
if
me
I'm-
extremely frustrated, because what happened
can
there
imagine,
is I
yeah.
hit the wrong button when exiting the rift, and it just rocketed me downwards.
Oh yeah, the rift exiting.
It
The
rocketed me,
buttons don't make sense.
upwards,
You would
and I landed on
accept
the
the
thing.
up button to go up.
So the up
You'd
button
accept
shot
the
me
s-
up, but up wasn't the right direction. The only way to do that jump correctly is to go forwards. You can't go up and then just hit the ledge, because the ledge is curved. So if you hit the ledge on the top, it'll just knock you down to the bottom.
There you go. Attacked by a.
Yeah, and then I'm like attacked on the way, which I had thought this like I had freed the town, so I wouldn't be attacked. So it was just like, what's
Yeah, screw
going
those
on?
birds too. Awful enemy.
Yeah, and then it was like it wasn't easy to find where I'd actually died here to collect my stuff. So it was just a weird moment. But yeah, I think for this I do plan on playing a little bit more of this. I don't think it's gonna be soon. Like I think this is a thing to come back to down the line when I have some downtime.
I may play it soon. I don't know if I see myself finishing it right now.
I
But
have
it just
one
depends
more.
on how bored I am before Space Marine 2 comes out.
I have
Great way
one
to
more
put it.
warning for this game really quickly. This does pull one of the cardinal sins of games with different ability trees, in my opinion. And I have to spoil this for people's like peace of mind. In the final battle, there's like you can't use magic for more than half of it.
How
So
fun.
all of your abilities and setups for that don't work. It'll brick entire builds because
That's
of
unfortunate.
what they do in the story.
Yeah, that's the thing I'm not a huge fan of when you have any kind of setup like this, is restricting your
Exactly.
ability when the player... Like, I feel like if you're going to do that, make it so that you earn your magic point and your physical points separately or something, right? So you always know, like, oh, they'll have this amount of other stuff at that point. All right, well, that's Flintlock. It seems like mixed to okay, but not... Maybe
I
not
want
great.
it to be good so badly.
I feel
Maybe
like
good
this
enough
is
to
like a
warrant trying out
6
and
to
seeing if it
7
really
out of
gels
10
with you.
or something.
Yeah.
It really comes down to whether you can, because you're gonna run into rough edges. It's a matter of whether you want to put up with those rough edges or not. It just depends on the person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Like,
I agree.
The best way I can put this game has the rough edges of a Triscuit, but it's just as tasty.
I mean, if you
inside.
really if you played every action game that has come out recently, and you really want another recent action game, this is a serviceable pick, right? Like, you're not gonna have a bad time, but just from like how annoying it is to aim at things.
Yeah, I'm like, we're not selling it with the gameplay right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's move on to talk about our final game of the set, and then we'll talk about our next picks. So,
Yeah.
you want to take us away? Wyatt?
Absolutely. So I picked Dungeons of Hinterberg, which I think
yeah.
everyone expected me to pick because this has been one of my more anticipated games this year. Its reveal trailer, instantly fell in love with it. I would say, and maybe you'll agree or disagree, this feels like a combination of a 3D Zelda and a Diablo style action RPG. More so leaning towards the kind of 3D Zelda, but it has some of the kind of the loot that you might find in something like an action RPG. You play as a woman named Louisa who's on vacation and she visits the mountain village of Hinterberg, where there's been a giant explosion of magic and monsters, and they've completely commodified it and turned it into a tourist attraction where you go and slay monsters during your
Yeah,
vacation stay.
literally just ski resort for dungeoneering.
Yeah, and the whole thing is like is like ski resort punk. Like all of your armor
Yeah.
feels a lot like something you'd get. I think in my notes I wrote it down as Fjall Ravencore.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Well,
This is
also
also the
with
looker of the group. This game looks gorgeous.
I
also with the gameplay, it
love
has
it.
kind of Persona-esque things with
Yes.
relationship
management.
links.
That's what I was.
Relationship.
That's what I was getting to. Is I think the
Sorry.
big distinguishing. I don't know. Fine. The big distinguishing factor is those kind of social kind of relationship bonding elements where your gameplay is kind of segmented into morning, which is running around different open-ended areas and doing fun adventure things, going into a dungeon, which then transitions into evening where you're running around town and you're upgrading your stuff, you're selling things, you're trying out new weapons, new builds, that kind of thing. And then you talk to someone, it transitions into like late evening where you're hanging out with someone, you're progressing the story, you're getting to know someone more, and getting to know these people kind of affects your various traits. So sometimes you unlock whole new mechanics or systems, and sometimes it's extra slots for your charms and that kind of thing. It
Sometimes
really
it's
just
photo
depends
mode,
on.
which I
Sometimes
Yeah.
it's
didn't
a
bother
whole
unlocking.
ass photo mode. And then it transitioned to nighttime, which is a cute little. You go back to your apartment or your the place that you're staying at, the little hotel, and you can either choose to go to bed with, so you wake up the next morning with full health, or you can watch TV or read something that will increase various stats, but will limit your will like lower your health cap for the day. So a really cozy like structure to it. Um,
Oh, so cozy.
Yeah, I would
I love this game.
You know what? I just noticed, sorry, that the sword blade is literally like a ski pole handle.
Yep, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. I love this game. I know Alex has finished it, and I wanted to finish it for this discussion because I am enjoying it so much. But I realized that this is the kind of game I didn't want to rush, and I really want to take my time with it because there is no game that I've played in a hot minute where I want to get like a nice mug of tea and get a nice cozy blanket and just settle down
Yeah.
for a few hours.
Yeah.
It's the game I play right before
I'm
bed. And I say that in the most loving way possible because that's what it feels like. It's very
I'm
cozy. It's very just atmospheric and you just feel good while you're playing it.
I was really upset to learn that there to my knowledge, after finishing it, there doesn't appear to be a new game plus, and there's not really a free roam option once you've
Hmm.
completed the game
Which would have been a
to go back
nice
and do.
yeah, it would have been a nice addition, but
Because oh my god, the vibes are immaculate.
yeah,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah,
I think the structure is great. I think I really love the characters so far. They all have the art style allows them to have very unique kind of looks that all fits their personality really well. They're well realized
Yeah.
characters. They have their
Mhm.
own drama going on, and it's just mwah,
Yeah,
it's so
who have you
good.
guys chosen to like let's get a little bit of a deep dive into the characters here for a bit. Who have you guys chosen to I get like pursue friendships or relationships with in the game?
Recently, I've been
I've
Or
done
doing
that
however far
twice
you
Thea.
yet.
can.
From not
Recent
first 2 hours, they don't really let you do a ton of that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
if
I
you've gotten
haven't quite
further
met
than like
everybody.
the first little bit.
Recently I've been spending a lot of time with Thea because those lock chests are annoying.
Yes. Yeah.
Annoying. Um and I'm really terrible with names, so I'm so sorry. What's the magic shop lady's name?
I forget her
Oh,
too,
what's her
but yeah,
name?
she has a lot of good mechanics linked behind her,
Yeah,
along
yeah.
with just a fun anti-capitalist story.
Oh
Oh
yeah.
god,
Well,
I
the whole
haven't met
thing
her
is
yet. I
kind
gotta.
of the whole thing is kind of
Yeah.
anti-capitalist, and it's very well done. And also in some very subtle ways, which was a lot of fun to discover as well. I will say, as an action game, it's not the greatest melee combat system I've ever played in my life, but it's definitely
It's
acceptable.
more
And
like well done than I thought. Like I would say I
Yeah.
had more fun with the melee here than I did in Flintlock, which
Oh,
is
absolutely.
I think a lot of that's just due to like this is more of a type of game that I enjoy. It's a little bit more actiony. You have more like ability focus. So you've got magic, you've got special sword like skills you get later on that you can use.
Yes.
Way
it's
Cortex
easier to
ability
take
is a
on
cult or something.
multiple enemies
I got-
too.
I
Can Beyblade around.
I
That's
had a
always
lot
great.
There's a special sword like supers you get from defeating enemies. One of my favorites was the swarm missile butterflies.
I gotta get to
Oh
that.
my god.
You said
So
swarm
good.
missiles,
You
Alex,
gotta.
and you know I'm in.
It's very fun.
There's one where you pull giant meteors from the sky and rain down
Yes,
on
there's
people.
that one.
Yeah.
There's one where you can
where you
become a
turn to
mole
a-
person and
about to
dig
say, yep.
underground.
Yep. I will say some of the abilities that really move Luisa around can feel very awkward. One of the
They can
first
be a
ones
little
you
hard to
get,
control, yeah.
one of the first ones you get is like a leap attack where you leap forward and you hit an enemies in like an
Yeah.
AoE. It's
Gotta
really
be
cool.
locked on for that one.
It's really cool, but it is very picky about placement, about lock on, and it just never feels like it quite goes where I want it to.
Yeah, I've liked that one, but I've always been locked on when I was using it, so it seems like I did what I wanted.
There's another one that I had a little bit of trouble using, which is the I think you get this one pretty early on as well, which is like a sort of dodge slash it absorbs ranged attacks that are shot at you.
Oh yeah.
I could never really get the timing on that one down right, so I just learned how to dodge better.
Yeah, I will say I did. There's a perfect dodge thing you can get very early on.
Yes,
you
the
get part of
slowdown.
tutorial. A little hard to trigger because it's kind of hard to know like what constitutes a perfect dodge here because there's not a ton of feedback for it. I kind of wish there was like some visual that represented I successfully did a perfect dodge aside from just the slow time thing. But that's like super minor. I think overall the combat here feels good, like better than I would have thought for a game that isn't super focused on like a deep combat system. It's more focused on having a lot of stuff to do. Like you've got a lot of magic, a lot of abilities, a lot of puzzles that are very cool.
System for like giving your weapons bonuses.
Yeah, that's what gives you the perfect dodge thing is the charms.
And it's a really fun system where you have slots and you have charms that take up a certain amount of slots.
It works the same way as Nier, bizarrely enough, where Nier Automata had that system.
And it also gives
them.
away. I don't know if you guys have unlocked this feature yet, but there's a scientist that you can talk to where you can give her your like the different monster parts you collect, and you can make those charms take up less slots, which is really fun.
Oh, nice.
I'm gonna want that perfect dodge charm for the entire game. So
yeah, no, it's great.
Yeah, only like super minor things. I wish there was a jump button, just because I feel like I should be jumping.
I felt like I was missing that.
It feels very locked in place. I think
climbing to me.
I play a lot of games that don't have jump buttons. It's fine. The climbing, yeah, it feels slow, but it's good enough. It feels like Uncharted-y. I think it's fine.
Yeah.
I think they like wanted. I don't think they wanted to make a platformer, so they wanted to make it very clear that like, no, it's not really like a platformer. It's not really that kind of experience, which I can understand.
I think it's more that there were a lot of spots in the tutorial where they wanted you to jump around, which felt awkward because they were making you do a lot of jumping that you don't have to do later on.
Yeah.
But overall, like this game's gorgeous. The combat feels good. All the sound design and music is great.
The music is fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
This reminds me a lot of Wyatt. I'm really curious if you agree. There are two games this reminds me most of. First of all, obvious reference here, Hades, I think is definitely like
absolutely
in the realm of what they're going for, and that you're like spending time with these extra characters. You're doing action stuff. You're doing social stuff.
Absolutely.
I think it totally is like in a very similar vein as Hades, even though this is not a roguelike. I would say if you enjoy that, you're probably going to like this.
Although
Second
if they
is Dungeons of
roguelike
Sandaria.
Yes.
I do think there's some Dungeons of Sandaria in here, and that this is really like about the joy of dungeon crawling in a weird way, and I think that's great. I very much enjoy just how different all of the dungeons are that I've done. I've only done like 2 or 3 of them, but they're all very different.
Exploring the dungeons, they have some really fun puzzles in these two.
Though I'm curious if it's in this video, but there was a moment where I got very stuck on a puzzle.
Did it involve minecarts?
Yes, it did involve minecarts.
I know the very spot.
My brain didn't work right for that puzzle.
Yep, that got me for a little bit.
But there's also another specific thing with there's different zones with different dungeons in them, and you get special powers that are zone specific.
Yeah, that's your magic
that are like your
spells,
magic
so
abilities that can be
Okay,
used
what
both in
is
traversal, puzzle solving, and combat.
what is everyone's favorite zone power? I'm curious.
I
If
haven't.
we're
We
only gonna
haven't.
get this
Oh.
I
second
feel like
one.
if we've only played 2 hours, we're not only gonna have the first one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say
Alex.
mine are from the last zone area, so that could be a spoiler. I'm not sure if
Oh,
I
okay.
can say
This
the
one
powers or
was
not.
in the Steam Next Fest demo, so I'm going to consider this
Yeah.
not a spoiler. The snowboard. There's a
I
whole area
There's
where you can just
I-
Super
grind
fun.
around Tony Hawk style, and it's
Yeah,
awesome.
they showed that in the trailers a ton. I want
I
that.
really like that zone. I'm really upset. Like, and I know it's coming with some of the dungeons, but that really didn't go well for my motion sickness with how
Oh,
the
yeah, I
snowboarding was handled
understand.
in the camera.
That makes sense.
As much as I
Yeah.
love that area, I was dreading doing the dungeons, especially one of the boss battles in there because it's.
In the last area, Alex, is it the ranged attack or the I'll say the
I think there's a ranged
traversal
attack for
move?
everything.
Well, no,
There's
but in that final area, is it your
oh
ranged attack or your traversal power?
I
For
loved
no
I
spoilers.
loved using them together in combat. Honestly, they had
Yes.
amazing synergy.
Yeah, it's
Um,
a lot of fun. The way that they my only problem with that, and I think this was a deliberate choice, but I do think it's a little bit disappointing. Some of the attack conduits, so some of the abilities you have are just either just the same or very, very similar to specific zone powers that you get later on. Like the groundhog attack is very similar to how the snowboard works, for example. Slightly different, but
oh
they
yeah,
feel
for
very
specific in
similar.
combat use, yeah.
And I think part of that is they wanted to offer those abilities in some way in other areas so that people can combo them together, and it kind of gives an excuse to kind of switch around per zone. But part of me was like, it feels a little bit it was a little disappointing that it felt like a lot of the attack conduits were very similar to zone powers that you get, if I have any complaints. Um, but no, this was a great first boss too.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I really love
Yeah,
this.
very
classic,
fun,
like,
unique
Zelda
mechanic
design.
stuff, and I think they go along with that for all the bosses of the areas where there's a good like unique mechanic that you can really sink your
It-
teeth into and have
the
fun with.
boss fights and the puzzles is part of the reason I say it reminds me of a 3D Zelda. They
Yeah,
felt
totally.
very Zelda to me because they
Mhm.
introduce these abilities to you in this area, and then they really try and use them in as many unique ways as possible in every dungeon.
Yeah,
And
and you have
it
to use
works
both of
super
them
well.
to like really get at the boss.
Yeah, no, it's very, very well done. I
I
could
would say
gush
the
about
only thing
this
I'm
game
not a
forever.
fan of there's a bunch of moments where they do take camera control away from you, and I think
Yeah.
the only reason I don't love them here is it feels like it doesn't, the controls feel different when it does that.
Yeah, there's
Because you're no longer
surprise
moving like a
side-scroller
third
moments
person
that I'm
game.
not
You're
a
moving
fan
like a
of.
top down game when it does that, and I don't know that it works as well as they had intended it to. Like I found it hard to target things when I did that.
There's a
Oh,
whole
yeah.
section in a dungeon where you're going up a tree, and it basically
Yep.
just turns into a side scroller for a little bit.
hmm
It's not super annoying. It
It's
was
I
just
feel like
kind of
side scroller is less
jarring.
annoying than when it goes top down. Because my problem with it
Yes.
doing top down, there's a few moments in like puzzles where it'll do it, but then I can't see what I need to look at to solve the puzzle, and so I feel like it's hard in those moments to know what's happening because it'll lock your view because it wants to show you something, and then it just doesn't give you enough detail to go on. Specifically, there's like a mineshaft dungeon where it like locks your view at the top of a puzzle pillar thing, and it was really hard for me to know that like I was done with it at that point because it didn't show like a clear exit. Just really minor stuff like that, but overall, I think this is the game that I had the most fun playing out of these.
This is my favorite game out of the bunch by far.
It's just super
Yeah.
unique, and I absolutely
Yeah.
intend to keep playing this one. This along with Octopath are the two that I think I'm going to actively be playing. So
I'll say this too. I love all of the boss and just the enemy designs in general. They're based off
Yeah.
of Austrian folklore, which is great. And there's a good variety of enemies. Some of them get really
yeah.
wacky. There's an enemy with a super long neck and the head of a goat, and it shoves its
Yeah.
head into the ground and then pops up and tries and attack you. It's super out there and wacky, and it's great. I love it. I love
yeah,
it.
lots of fun stuff. And again, game's gorgeous. So this is one of the prettiest games I think we've played on the show. Reminds me a lot of Dordogne from ages past that we had played in
Oh,
a very
yeah.
cool art style. Social stuff is neat. I'm excited to get more into the social aspect because I think I literally got to choose one person to interact with, and I think I chose Thea and the other local.
There's a girl who's also on vacation here who's like working several jobs. She's at the kid stand in the first area. She's like
Yeah.
the
Oh, that's
kid pen.
Marina, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yes, Maria.
Marina's
She also
great.
does like the ice cream.
These are your
Heavily
terms.
recommend. Uh, I heavily recommend hanging out with her, befriending her, because
Mhm.
she gets you later on a breakfast option that can give you buffs for your day.
Ooh. Yeah, it's not
I
just like stat boosts talking to characters. It unlocks whole systems and mechanics, which is just
It's very cool.
intoxicating.
You talk to a character to unlock a combo counter, which I did. I fully maxed out the trench coat guy because I'm
Well,
just
now
like
you've said the thing
he's
that I
so
have to
angsty.
do, Alex. There's no way. I have to talk to the fake Devil May Cry man and get my fake Devil May Cry skills.
He looks so obnoxious at first, but I'm just like, oh, wow.
You said he's in a trench
everyone
coat
in
and he
this
gives you a
game
combo
really is
counter. That's
written
totally
well.
meant to be Dante.
Oh, 100%.
100%. That is a Dante.
He has a
nod.
French name that sounds like Dante. Or
Of
sounds
course.
like Dante adjacent.
Dante and Virgil adjacent.
There's so much good writing in this game.
This is a game for me because like I really like the cozy aesthetic, and like don't get me wrong, I love a cozy game sometimes, but I'm more into this gameplay than I am a lot of the gameplay in these cozy games sort of things.
Yeah.
So this to me is like the perfect balance of like a game I really like that's like an action-y fantasy thing, and then also you get to go in town and have coffee.
Well, I think this is like this game shows the strength of having a good game loop, because the loop here is go on adventure, come back, do social thing, go on another adventure, and it's like the same reason that I've been playing a lot of Path of Exile's current league is because they have a town building thing, and so my loop now is I go do cool ARPG explodey stuff, I come back and then I sit in my chill town and go talk to my boat
now
captains.
I have to play that.
Well, it's
You do have to
something
play it
I
now. You
could've-
gotta go join the boat league.
Something I could have missed at the beginning. I probably definitely missed this at the beginning, but I found like halfway through at day 15, I was reminded, oh, I'm only here for a limited number of days.
Yeah, that's the part that
So
stresses me out about this game.
I don't know if you can fail the story by taking too many like restful breaks or not, because I did it like just under the counter. I was able to do the story within 31 days, which I think might be the max. I'm not sure.
I think
Yeah, that's interesting to me.
I think they throttle, and I haven't finished it, but it feels like when a story thing has to happen, it happens regardless of whatever plans you had that night. So in terms of the main story, there's no way to fail the main story, but there are certain character side stories that feel very time relevant, and I'm curious, like especially with the magic shop lady Heather, I forget her name, but with that I'm like, oh, is this
Hannah?
like a time Hannah? Thank you. I'm like, is this a time gated thing? Like how long do
Yeah,
I
I got
have to
nervous. I
actually
tried to get
finish
those
this?
signatures as fast as possible.
Yeah,
And then I
yeah.
kept getting sidetracked by mandatory events. I'm like, no!
I will say, if you're interested in a loop like this, I played a game, and I mean to go back and play more of it because it was super interesting. It reminds me of a game called Dreamscaper, where you play as someone. From what I recall, the story was you're in a new town. You literally don't know anyone who lives there, and when you fall asleep at night, your your dreams are manifested as a roguelike, like a top-down roguelike, and depending on how you spend your day and who you talk to, it changes your um it changes your mood, and it changes your outlook on things, and that also changes the gameplay in the roguelike section. So it reminds
Very
me a
cool.
lot of that. Super cool. Check it out. But it's a loop that I love, where it's like you have this action game in one area, and then you have this kind of social hub in this kind of second half of the game that then kind of, and both of these things are kind of affecting each other. It's a really intoxicating loop. It's why I liked Moonlighter, I think, a lot more than most other people did when we played it for the show. But just that loop specifically really it really gets me. So also you can pet those cows.
You can't. Oh no, I missed it.
You can pet the cows, and that just makes it the greatest
Man, I need to
game
figure out how to pet the cows now.
ever.
I cannot.
Yep.
I cannot believe.
How could
I
you
didn't
just
even
say
try.
that, Wyatt? All right.
You can pet the cows. Feel bad that you couldn't pet the cows.
All right.
I'm crushed.
So it seems like I think the overall opinion for this game is play it. Like this is I think one of the ones that we can
Oh,
equivocally
absolutely.
say
You have to.
you should try
Definitely.
this.
If you've got Game Pass, for sure,
To
worth a
work for
try.
Game Pass. He finally did it.
No, I feel this is the easy recommendation, especially on Game Pass. But I think even if you don't have this, pick it up.
I can't imagine
it's cheap.
that
It's
30,
fun.
$40, something like that, if even.
Yeah, and there's 25 dungeons that are each relatively meaty. At
There's
least
hidden dungeons.
this all. I'm sure there's hidden ones, but there's 25 that you have to go get
Yeah,
your like dungeon book
you-
stamped.
You befriend a dog to find one of them.
Awesome. So yeah, I think generally like super positive on this game. Just really fun to play, and I'm excited to
This
play more
is-
of it and keep
This
going.
is Game of the Year contender for me.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
totally. I can
interesting.
fully see that.
I adore this game, and it's the reason why I wanted to finish it. Like I said, wanted to finish it for the show, but I really want to take my time with it.
I
really
could
wanna
potentially see
engage
this
in that
being a
loop.
thing that we revisit once a few of us have finished it and do a small episode on.
I don't.
Just finishing
It's
this
one I
one.
don't. If there's a game I'm really into, I will absolutely like Netflix style binge watch it or binge play it.
Yeah,
This
gotta
one,
control
I
ourselves
love
on this
it.
one.
Yeah, this one I love so much. I want to engage it at its own pace, which means
Enjoy it
I'm-
like a
yeah,
fine wine.
exactly.
Savor it.
All right. That said, we've talked about all 4 of our games, which means it's time for all of us to pick new games. So I hope everyone's been ready, thinking about games that they want to pick. Who's got
Yep.
one ready to go that they want to bring in?
I got one. I'll go. So it's actually perfect timing. I've been planning on doing this for the last couple episodes, and then other things kind of caught my interest more. But they just announced a sequel to this, so I think it's the perfect time to play Savage Planet or
Very good Journey to the Savage Planet.
Journey to the Savage Planet. Yeah, they have like the Ultimate Edition or the Employee of the Month Edition on Game Pass, and I've been wanting to play this for a while. Sequel looks pretty cool, so I'm excited for this one.
I think I went to a launch party for that with the something when I was in Montreal. No, it wasn't a launch party. There was some like I don't know. There was some like game dev event I went to, and they had like literally launched the game that day, so they were like celebrating it.
There you go.
All right. Okay. So who wants to go next?
I can go.
Go for
The
it.
game I'm picking isn't out yet, but I saw it's coming out in just a little over a week. I think I want to play Age of Mythology Retold.
Awesome pick.
Yeah. All
I have a
right.
good time with that one.
I
You
played
want
that.
to hurt me, Alex?
I played that game originally as a kid. It's one of my
Alex will teach
first
you.
games.
You'll become one with the RTS.
Maybe I might have a Souls Awakening. That's yet to be seen.
look.
I think you just need to play the
loved-
campaign and not
I was gonna say
us
I
force you into a
loved.
multiplayer match.
I loved this game as a kid, and I had no idea how the game worked because there was just some like free mode that you could go into, and I was like, oh, summon big god, smash city.
Hey, sometimes monkey brain is satisfied. All right. Alex, do you have a pick?
I do. You know, my other pick, I think I'm gonna vet first before recommending it. We're in for a very punny time because the game or series of games that I am recommending us for Game Pass is the Ace Attorney trilogy.
Excellent.
Oh my
hell
god.
Very
yeah.
excited about that. That's a great pick.
Now,
All right.
if it's a trilogy of games we're playing, how do we want to play?
We're just
a
gonna play
little
one.
bit of
We'll
each?
start at one.
You,
and then,
you can't
yeah.
play them out of order, I think.
Okay.
Yeah,
Can you?
play one? Don't play. You can. Don't do it. I would heavily recommend against doing it.
No
You'll
joke.
be very
I
confused.
just found my copy of the first one for the DS earlier today.
Yeah, I've got the
Oh my
trilogy on Switch that I've
God.
been meaning to play through. So
Wow.
yeah, great pick. All right, well, said we're gonna do it last month, then got distracted, so we're doing it this month. Kunitsugami: Path of the Goddess. Let's
Hell
jump
yeah.
on that new game train. I think honestly the game that it most reminds me of right now is Dungeons of Hinterberg. So I think we're all gonna have a good time with it.
Well, you should have said that before.
Dungeons of Hinterberg with tower defense. All right.
Sold.
Yeah, I remember this game.
Yeah, super cool game. I've been playing on the side and I love it so far. So I'm very excited for all of us to play that. All right. Well, I think we've had our chat about what games we're playing, which means it's time for shout outs. And then we're done with the
Yeah.
show. We survived the day.
Finally.
Oh,
I mean, oh no.
I have a shout out.
Yeah, do you?
Brisket.
Good shout out.
Yeah.
You know what? I think I might shout
classic.
that one out too.
Love me some brisket. We had
Solid.
some ordered and brought in from St. Louis for my dad's retirement party over the weekend. Oh, I love salt and smoke brisket. So
Oh,
good.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Wonderful barbecue.
All right.
I'll go next.
You got one.
I'll go next.
Wyatt?
I went to a comedy stand-up show a few nights ago, from Bob the Drag Queen, and it was absolutely
Very fun.
hilarious. I'm not super familiar with with her stint on Drag Race or anything like that, but so I was going in cold, but man, that was hilarious. And if she's performing anywhere near you and you're into stand-up comedy, definitely go. So much fun.
Super cool. All right. Well, I'll shout out next. I'm playing a little game on the side called Diplomacy is Not an Option, which is almost like a little. I would put it very similar to it feels like Age of Empires, but if it was more of a defend one point rather than try to expand thing. And it's like a fun kind of tower defense-y RTS thing that's relatively lightweight. It just really focuses on huge numbers of things on screen at a certain point. And yeah, it's very fun. It's a fun little, much lighter weight thing than a full Age of Empires or other similar RTS. It was in a Humble Bundle last week that might still be running now. But yeah, it's been a great time playing that game. So big shout out. All right.
Oh yeah.
We got one left, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna shout out brisket as well. I last weekend, while I was missing out on this podcast, I was in New York and happened to be passing through Syracuse, I think it was, and I stopped at Dinosaur Barbecue. I had a brisket slider that was just incredible.
Awesome. All right, well, that's our show for today. Next week, we don't know what we're talking about yet. It's going to be something. Probably a little bit of Gamescom news and stuff like that. And a few other things. I will say, so this month is a regular Game Pass Games Club, but month after, I think we all are pretty interested in Dragon Age Veilguard coming out. So our plan is to instead do a little dive into Dragon Age Inquisition as our thing for the next round of what we would normally do Games Club, do one game and get a little bit deeper into it and follow that Dragon Age through line. So be excited for that. On that note,
right.
We'll see y'all next week.
Yeah.
Tuesdays.
While we're calling out delicious food, while I was at that stand-up show, I had this amazing pulled pork kimchi sandwich. Very, very good.
Sounds incredible.
I love kimchi.
That's a good cornbread.
Kimchi and everything. There you go.
We're now turning into a food podcast.